It was too dangerous from trying to understand it to the experiments. There were too many glitches in the system, and the technology was just way too advanced for us, Lara explained, lifting up her fork and placing it down on her food. Did you at least figure out how to control them? Maybe understand how they communicate with each other? Cesar questioned. Lara opened her mouth to answer, but suddenly crashing through the windows of the restaurant was a swarm. The nanochips curved through the air, creating a funnel that knocked over Cesar and Lara's table along with their chairs. Laying on the floor, hearing the panic of civilians in the restaurant, Cesar looked over, seeing Lara slowly standing up. "Get down!" he shouted, tackling her to the floor before a collective group of nanochips could fly past her, missing her head. Cesar turned his focus towards the entrance of the restaurant, witnessing the nanotechnology gathering together and creating a male human form with pitch-black skin, blue circuitry lines covering the body, and a silver-colored face with white pupilless eyes. "Okay, dinner's over, let's go," Cesar said, helping Lara to her feet, his first instinct being that he get the danger away from the populated area. The two then vaulted over the windowsill of the broken window before landing on the sidewalk in the cold night as attendants of the restaurant fled away. "I'll call my bodyguard. He can drive us out of here," Lara said, reaching in her pocket to retrieve her phone. "Seriously?" Cesar questioned, ripping out a piece of glass from his side, slightly wincing in pain. "We don't have time for that. I parked over here." He escorted her along towards the parking lot. Reaching in his pants pocket, Cesar grabbed a button and pressed it, causing his car to turn on. He opened the door as Lara rushed to the passenger seat, then got in himself before pressing the gas and speeding off into the street. Cesar adjusted his rearview mirror, getting a glance at the nanotech-covered man. Approximately 250 pounds, male, seems right-handed, Cesar muttered to himself. Lara looked over at him as if he was crazy and spouting nonsense. "What are you doing?" she asked, snapping her seatbelt in place. "Studying," Cesar replied, turning the wheel and drifting off down another street. The nanoman suddenly disappeared from view before Cesar saw the swarm fly up ahead in front of the car, forming the man a few blocks from where they were headed. Cesar gasped, seeing the man form in front of his car. Okay, that's kinda cool, I'll give him that," he commented, slowing his car down to a halt. "Cooler than your necrophagian Mothman?" Lara questioned, with slight panic in her voice. Cesar groaned as the nanoman began to fly towards them. "Seriously, don't start," he said before driving down the street in reverse, away from the swarm. Cesar quickly whipped his vehicle around before releasing the brake and hitting the gas pedal, driving forward once again, swerving out of the way from the oncoming traffic. "If you keep driving like this, we're gonna die before the swarm even catches up," Lara stated. Cesar turned the autopilot on, then unbuckled his seatbelt. "Just keep the wheel steady. The autopilot's kind of wonky sometimes," he said as he rolled down his window and got out, climbing onto the roof of the car. Once on the roof of the car, Cesar looked over at the nanoman, still in tow and gaining even more speed. Keeping his feet balanced, the hero lifted up his sleeve, activating his Multitrix. Cesar saw a collection of six small alien silhouettes in a circle, with a seventh in the center of the screen on his watch, then turned the dial a few times to the left, showing the others in his library of DNA. He tapped the screen as the faceplate of the watch popped up. He then pressed it down with the palm of his hand, shifting into a humanoid plant-like alien with an overall green and black colored body, flame-patterned head, mostly yellow with red around his eyes, inside a large collar raised up around his neck, which was yellow on the inside. He also now had root-like feet, seemingly holding rocks. His eyes were oval-shaped with points at each end of the pupils, copying the shape. His shoulders and head had red petals, and his elbows and legs had green frills sticking out. "Wildfire?" Cesar questioned, looking down at his hands, recognizing the alien. "I want to sort them out, not barbecue them," Cesar said with a stuffy voice. Wildfire placed his hands together, creating a fireball. As the car sped down the street, he tossed a blazing sphere, hitting a fire hydrant, causing the object to burst from the ground with a geyser of water spraying on the street. The alien watched as some of the nanochips that passed through began to get damaged, shutting down, while most of them, which created the male figure, passed through sprouting tentacles similar to spider legs, helping the nanoman propel forward. "Hey, hothead! Ever heard of collateral damage?" Lara shouted from inside the car. Wildfire grunted with his palms up, hesitating to release a flurry of flames. "Well, I gotta say I'm very open to suggestions. It's not like I get the wrong alien. But wait," he said, realizing a pattern that was there all along, from his first encounter at the gala, to the scene in Undertown, and now tonight. "What?" the alien heard Lara question. "I get the wrong form whenever I'm around the nanochips. Their technological frequencies must be affecting the Multitrix somehow," Wildfire concluded. He then placed his right hand up and began to turn the dial of the symbol on his chest, making the faceplate pop up. "Maybe if I just cycle through," he wondered, hoping that if he kept switching forms, he'd eventually end up with the alien he wanted. Wildfire pressed down the Multitrix on his chest, and with a red flash that gleamed in the night streets, he transformed. From plant to beast, the hero had now become a short, chubby, green, stubby-limbed creature with four-fingered hands, three-toed feet, 6 tubular growths on the back of his head, and 3 sets of gill-like markings on his face with yellow eyes, and 3 tongues sticking out of his mouth. "Brr, no," Cesar said, hating the Multitrix again, now turning into a white-colored monkey-like alien with 4 arms, 6 eyes, and 2 legs, having 3 fingers on each hand and 3 toes on each foot, and a tail with a striped design. "Nope," the hero said, pressing down the watch symbol yet again. "Who's this?" Cesar questioned, noticing he now had the appearance of a bipedal purple crocodile, but with dark green hieroglyphic symbols all over his body. A long dorsal fin stretched from the top of his head to the middle of his back, with muscular arms and slender legs. He also had 3 giant gills on both sides of his face, 2 yellow-green pupilled eyes on the front of his face, a black folded nose, and a huge underbite with yellow jagged teeth randomly scattered in his mouth. Slapping the Multitrix symbol on his left shoulder with a sigh, hoping to turn it into something useful as well as a form he knew, Cesar switched into a 3-foot-tall blue koala-like alien with a tuft of fur on his head, having large rabbit-like ears with asymmetrical notches on the outer rims of each ear. A wide mouth spread across his face as his black eyes expressed a focused emotion, a confused emotion, a small, short, stumpy tail, 4 arms, 3 retractable spines that ran down his back, 4 sharp retractable claws on each of his foot and back paws, and 2 antennae on his head. "Nada," the creature stated with a growl before turning the dial of the Multitrix, which was on his stomach, before transforming again into a green reptilian creature with long tail and tentacles on his head, sporting 3 purple eyes, one of which was in the middle of his head, 4-fingered hands, and ostrich-like legs and feet. "Okay, I can work with this," Cesar said. "Tentakinetic," he added. His purple eyes began to glow as he reached his hands out. Tentakinetic started to concentrate on the nanochips, and only the nanochips. Using his telekinetic abilities, he was able to create such a force that made the segments of the nanochips swarm explode. Like firecrackers in the air, the rapid and repeated stove-popping noises and tiny explosions began to increase as the tentacles of the nanoman disintegrated. Tentakinetic's eyes widened. It's working! I am a genius, he announced, congratulating himself. One of the tentacles attached to the nanoman sprang forward before falling apart, releasing a few nanochips that attached to Cesar's car, which they then proceeded to seemingly eat away at it. No, not my car. This is my third favorite one, Tentakinetic complained, witnessing the nanotechnology cover the trunk of his car and began to destroy it as they spread around the vehicle. The alien turned around, then used his abilities to force open the driver door, then instantly broke off the side. This is our stop, Tentakinetic said, physically unbuckling Lara's seatbelt before helping her out, grabbing her arms, and flying above the streets, soon hovering down in a nearby park. He landed in the grass, watching his car disintegrate into distance as the nanoman, who had now used the technology to create rings for himself, quickly fly towards him. Tentakinetic stopped in front of Lara, holding his hands out with the tentacles on his head raised, eyes glowing. The alien concentrated, condensing the space around the nanotechnology, causing them to go up in multiple tiny explosions as pieces of the nanoman fell apart, becoming undone. The male figure reverted back into a swarm, then retreated away into a nearby drainage system. Rushing over and crouching down with his eyes peering into the sewer system, Tentakinetic glared, disappointed as the nanotech and whoever was controlling them had got away again. You have to deal with that every day? Lara questioned, astounded as she approached the alien. Pretty much, Tentakinetic replied, picking up one of the dead microchips that had been left behind. There's always someone who thinks they have something to prove. In my line of work, that's just what you call the big bad. Are you okay? The alien asked before transforming back into his human form. That was amazing, Lara replied, not exactly answering the question given to her. You're amazing, she added. Cesar nodded, glaring down at the known yet still mysterious piece of technology in the palm of his hand. Please, tell me something I don't know, he replied, passing by the young woman. Well, you forgot to say it's hero time. Isn't that your catchphrase? Lara asked, following him. I don't say that anymore, Cesar replied. Lara's eyes filled with shock. Why not? Cesar shook his head. That's classified information. With the roll of her eyes, Lara replied, I'm starting to think you're just using the word classified as an excuse. Cesar clapped sarcastically. Good for you! You're finally catching on. Get used to it, he replied, and the two continued on their way, wondering what surprises would come next. As the sun shined above Cesar's house, the birds in the trees chirped vigorously while the daylight bled through C10's room, and inside that room, sleeping, was Lara. Her hair was slightly messy and frizzed up. Opening her eyes slowly with a lost and confused expression, Lara sat up in the bed, first noticing she wasn't wearing her clothes, but someone else's. A suit jacket, in fact, with nothing else on. Glaring around at the room, she saw a guitar placed in the far corner of the room, a few movie posters, and a collection of C10 fan art on the wall near the balcony. That's when she realized this was Cesar's room, and she was wrapped in his jacket. No, Lara protested. That didn't happen. It couldn't have happened. Looking over at the side of the bed, she saw her clothes and undergarments laying on the floor. After getting dressed, she quietly exited the room and headed down the hallway, smelling the aroma of freshly made breakfast float through the air. With her jacket wrapped around her like a robe, Lara turned the corner into the kitchen, suddenly seeing the scaly dog-like creature, Jackie. The alien barked as he jumped at Lara, who let out a light scream before witnessing the unearthly animal get a whiff of her scent, then pad off into the kitchen. Wakey, eggs and bakey, Cesar said, standing in front of the stove wearing green track pants and a white tank top, with a plate of food as Lara stepped into the kitchen. I'm just kidding. There isn't any bacon. I just make pancakes. Just a little humor for you. He added, turning around with a plate of pancakes, placing them on the center of the counter. What happened last night? Lara questioned, watching Cesar toss a pancake at Jackie like a frisbee. Jackie grabbed the disc in her jaws and began savagely chomping on it. I'm pretty sure you know. The nanochips attacked us, although they're more of a nano man now, Cesar replied, looking at the corner of his eye in deep thought. Supervillain name pending. Lara shook her head. I know about that. I mean us. What happened with us? Cesar's eyes slightly widened before a smile grew across his face. You were pretty shaken up, so I took you here. You were so scared you didn't want to go home. So in my vulnerability, you made a move on me. Is that it? Lara questioned. Cesar shook his head. Actually, you're the one who made the move on me, he said, pointing the spatula in his hand at her. Cesar chuckled. What a move it was, he muttered. Lara groaned in frustration. What? First time hooking up with the superhero? Cesar asked. No, Lara responded. Cesar tilted his head. Wait, was I your first? Lara cut him off. Absolutely not. I just can't believe I had a moment of intimacy with someone as infuriating as you. Jerry, wearing her plumber's uniform and gear, arrived in the kitchen out of the hallway. Hey, did you leave the... She paused, noticing Lara standing there, pitching the bridge of his nose. What happened to our roommate agreement? No more girls over, Jerry said. You're a girl, and so's Jackie, Cesar replied before hearing Jackie bark in response. Lara sighed. Okay, I have to go now. Lara suddenly placed her hands up. I'll walk you out. No, I can walk myself out. Thank you. Excuse me, she said to Yuri before leaving the kitchen and heading towards the front door. Yuri glared at him with her arms crossed. You have a problem, she said as Jackie stole another pancake from the stack on the counter. Cesar nodded. I know. The nanoman is still out there getting stronger. He or they are learning to create new constructs, and the DNA particle isn't even ready yet, he explained. The DNA what? DNA particle, Cesar said, walking down the steps into his large technology advanced workshop with Lyra beside him and Jackie in tow with a pancake dangling from her jaws. As the doors to the large workshop opened, Cesar gestured to a circular table with an unhinged clamp, circuitry-like design on top of it connected to a computer set. 3 rods were attached to the top of the surface with a plating over it, and in the middle of that was a laser-like object pointing down towards the table. Yuri slightly pointed to the machine. This is going to help you with the nano thing? Cesar nodded. Nano man, yeah, he said, placing his foot on a motorcycle wheel before kicking it across the lab, watching it slowly roll under a metal table. Okay, but that's not what I was talking about. That Jansen guy from America, he's here. Cesar's eyes widened before he looked over at Jerry in shock. What? Why? You have a meeting, Jerry replied. Cesar shook his head in denial. Nobody said I had a meeting with him. Jerry pointed past Cesar at the whiteboard, mousing on the clear glass wall over at a tool drawer that read, Meeting with Jansen Guy, in purple marker. Oh, right, Cesar said, only just now remembering.